Today is Sunday, Tesvov, Tevis, Tovshin Ayin Tes. We are in Teres Menachem, Sefer Mamorim, Tovshin Yud Gimel, in the Mamar of Shabbos Parshas Shlach, Vayihiyu Bnei Yisroel Bamidbar. We are on page Kuf Pei. We are on, let's see which line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 lines from the top. 2, 4, 6, 8, and 12.
We appreciate.
14 lines from the top. At a full stop. Ukmeikein. The Rebbe is explaining in the Maimer two modes of Avodas Hashem. Two modes of serving Hashem. Limited and unlimited. Right? And the Rebbe said that it is necessary, it's not sufficient to serve Hashem in a limited mode because of the possibility of things going wrong. Yinika lachetzonim, seepage to those things that are outside of Kedusha, of godliness. And that is at every level, starting from Maisa, action, Dibur, speech, Machshava, thought, Midas, the emotions, Meichen, the intellect, and even the level of Re'usa de Liba, the desire of the heart, the love of the heart, which is a reference, a term that's used to describe the love that emanates from the essence of the soul. There too, it has to be from the essence rather than from the aspect of the essence's revelation. Then the Rebbe went on and said that this too is mirrored, or stems, or starts, in the divine attributes above, in the spheres above, starting from Malchus Datzilis, that we find that you need to have also the unlimited aspect besides the limited, moving on to Zoh, Ze'eramp in the Midos, which in general terms is the idea of Chesed, the Midah of Chesed, because the divine attribute of Chesed is a Midah, is the dominant Midah. The Midah that joins is the main Midah, the main attribute of the emotional attributes in Atzilus. Moving on from Chesed, from Midas to Moichin, you have Bina, which is the exterior aspect, and then you have Chochmah. So at each one of the levels, you have the exterior or the limited dimension, and it's necessary to also have the unlimited. So that now we're up to, so the Rebbe, again, in Spheres, the Rebbe began with Malchus, went on to Midas, and then to Meichen, to the intellect. Now we're up to Keser. The Rebbe is moving upwards. Before we go on, I just want to give a small introduction, small preface. And this relates to two points. First of all, when he spoke about Midas, if you remember, he focused mainly on Chesed, because Chesed, as mentioned, is the dominant Midah that goes along with all the other Midas. It's a day that joins all the other days. Even though in the days of creation it's Sheishis Yomim Osa. Day 1 was Chesed, day 2 was Gvura, and so on and so forth. And that's why the creatures that are created on those days mirror the sphere of that day. So on day 1, light was created, the idea of Chesed. On day 2, the Rakia, the firmament was created, which is the idea of Gvura, splitting, dividing the top, the heavens above, the waters above from the waters below, and so on and so forth. Nevertheless, the dominant midah, the dominant sphere, the dominant attribute is Chesed. The Rebbe discussed that because of that, it would seem that seepage to the outside, as or Yinika Lachetzonim, is not possible. Says the Rebbe, it is from Chesodim HaMegulim, from revealed Chesodim, but not from Chesodim HaMechusim, covered Chesodim, when they're still covered in the intellect. Why is that? So it's explained in other places in Chassidus that Klippah does not like structure. When everything is in order, right? When the hishtalshalus, the seder, the order that Hashem instituted, is proper. So the divine energy comes into the proper keli, and it's ordered and it's organized and so on and so forth. Klippah it has no room there, because al pi seder, the way that Eibishter, way Hashem instituted it according to the order, Hashpoah should go to Kedusha, not to Klippah. Right? Tikkun. What's Tikkun? Things go where they belong. There's an order. So Klippa doesn't have any room. So that's why the Rebbe said, even though it's chesed, and chesed means gilui, revelation. For example, what's golus? Exile. The Rebbe is going to mention later on as well. There is something which is called the Ayin Sorim, the 70 hosts. The 70 hosts are the spiritual hosts that are responsible for the hashpah, for the flow, to the entire world, to all the nations of the world, to the entire world. Right? Am Yisroel has a different line of hashpah, not through the Ayin Sorim, generally speaking. Right? Golus, in the times of Golus, what happens is Am Yisroel gets their hashpah from wherever they get it, but it goes via the Ayin Sorim as well. That's why it's Golus, because the revelation is not as it is usual, as it should be. So obviously, if the hashpah is not as it should be, because Hashem's divine presence, what does it mean? There's Gili Lakus, right? And then there's a Lakus as it is concealed. Helen Hester. What does it mean, Helen Hester? That's Golus, it's concealed. Hester Panim. What does it mean? That the divine energy recedes back to its source, and what remains dominant is the system of the Ayin Sorim, and therefore the Gili Lakus the revelation of godliness, it should come down into Kedusha, come down into Beis HaMikdash, and so on and so forth, is diminished. Why? Because of the dominance of the Ayin Sorim and the reduction or the concealment of the godly divine energy as it normally is. Right? So in other words, when things are in order, when the Gili Lakus is, the revelation of godliness is as Hashem set it out, everything works fine. Everything has its place. Everyone gets his hashpah, his divine energy as it should, in the amounts they should, in the quality that one should, and so on and so forth. Right? So therefore, Klippa can't take more than has been apportioned for it. It's only when there is something out of order that Klippa could sort of gain more benefit than usual from Kedusha. Right? So therefore, he said before, when it's chesed, even though it's chesadim, which means it's gilui, it's revelation, so things are in the system as they should be. Nevertheless, if it's megulim, if it's disconnected from the meichin, right, from the higher dimension, still it offers a potential for the focus on the eye rather than on the one above, rather than on Hashem. That's point number one. Point number two that I would like to say is this, which is important for later on. Klippa can draw off Kedusha in two ways, generally. Either through abundance of tzimtzum, tremendous contraction, as just now mentioned, when things get darker and and Kedusha and Oyer is more contracted and concealed, so ultimately they can latch onto that as well. Or through an abundance of gilui, a very high level, where things don't make a difference.
The connection between Klippa and Torah.
Correct, exactly. Where does Klippa come from? Shvir Zakel from Oiris Merubim, tremendous revelations, such powerful. What's the common denominator? Powerful revelations are not containable in a kli. It makes no difference, right? So what happens? Shvira sakelim, and it falls into all sorts of places where it shouldn't. As he's going to say now, that similarly, when we talk about keser, he's going to quote a pasuk from Mishlei. Is it from Mishlei? Yes. Smomis biyadayim tesapes v'hi behechle melech. The spider crawls on the walls, hangs onto the walls with its legs, its arms. V'hi behechle melech, and she's in the chambers of the king. Meaning to say that when the revelation is so great, it makes no difference. It's meaningless. The spider is meaningless. It's unnoticeable, right? So at a very high level, Klippa could also latch on. So therefore, he spoke earlier about Klippa getting from Malchus, from the lower levels. That's where there's tremendous tzimtzum. It's shrunk down and shrunk down and shrunk down. So much. Or like you mentioned before, even the idea of Shvira Skelim, it falls very, very low. Klippa could latch on there. Then there is the potential for Klippa to draw when Smam is the Bedaitis happens, when the revelation is very great. And it's a similar idea where, again, it's out of order, so to speak. It's not contained. And as he's going to mention later on in the Pasuk, the Navi says, Halei och Esav li Yaakov. Esav is a brother to Yaakov, which means to say they're equal at a certain level. But then there is a level of Oyevis Yaakov is Esav Senesi, where Hashem says, I love Jacob and I despise Esav. At a certain level, Esav and Yaakov are brothers, meaning to say, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that this one is Esav and this one is Yaakov. But then there is a level when, yes, it does matter. But interestingly, the point is that as mentioned, at a very high level, it makes no difference. But if you go higher to the pnimius, to the etzem, to the essence of it, it does matter. Let's see it inside now. Let's go into Keser. 14 lines to the top. Is it clear what it was? The point that I was trying to make? So too, it is in the attribute of Keser of the crown, which is the transcendent level, the level beyond the 10 divine attributes. From the exterior aspect of Keser, from the exterior level of Keser, it is possible for there to be seepage to the Chitzenim, to the Klippa. As the verse states in Mishlei. The spider grabs with its arms onto the walls, and she is in the chambers of the king. What does that mean? As it is known, when we talk about seepage from the level of makif, from the transcendent level, it is specifically which level of the transcendent? It's the exterior dimension of the transcendent that the klipa could draw some sustenance from. This is not the case when we talk about the internal dimension of the crown of the transcendent divine energy. They have no hold there. Klipa has no hold there. As the verse states, I love Jacob and I despise Esav. In other words, when it comes to Chitzenius Hamakiv, the external divine energy, over there it's Esav and Yaakov. Esav and Yaakov are brothers, they're equal. When you rise higher, you go to the Pnimius Hamakiv, to the internal aspect of the transcendent. Over there, Yaakov is Esav Senesi. Yaakov is the one that gets the hashpah. Kedusha is the one that gets the hashpah, and Esav should not. Vos is the word. Let's try to articulate it slightly to try to flesh it out and understand it. Keser corresponds to Rotzen. Sphere of Keser above corresponds in Nefesh Adam, in man, to Rotzen, desire. Right? You have Chabad and the Midas in the person, which the intellect has its place in the mind, the emotions in the heart, and so on and so forth. Desire has no specific place. It's transcendent. It's all-encompassing. Right? I want. What wants? I want. Can't say my hand wants, my feet want. I want. Right? So what's the word? What is like this? Imagine a person who one of the parables that is actually brought in Chassidus often is the idea of an architect. So you have...
Oh no, we have to use that one?
A dentist.
He's a dentist.
Accountant.
Not sure if it works.
Dentist is better. You got one of those?
Gotta figure this one out. The building of a home, right? So there is the Rotzen Pnimi, and there's then the Rotzen Chitzeni, right? Where are the details more important? So in other words, if the person wants the home just so that's the Rotzen Pnimi. What does he want? He wants the home. He doesn't want the brick, or the plasterboard, or the granite, or whatever else it is, right? He wants the house. The details make a lot bigger difference insofar as the Rotzen Pnimi. So in other words, if you look at the house, right? So the house is the completed edifice. Then you have aspects: this room, that room, this wall, the other wall, right? Where are the details more important? This wall needs to be exactly so much and so much space from the edge. Because it's important for the wall? No. It's important because he has the view of the completed edifice, and it won't be as he wants unless the details are perfect. If you're talking about the wall itself, okay, so it's a centimeter here, it's a centimeter there. It's not the end of the world. But if you're talking about the final edifice, it could make, over there the detail is a lot more important. So the Chetzeni Saratzen would be, the external aspect of the Ratzon of desire would be the room or the wall. The Pnimi Saratzen is what? Is the full structure. The detail. The shleimus of it, which is a lot, in which context the detail is a lot more important. So therefore, in Chetzeni Sakeser, Esav Yaakov, Esav Yaakov, it doesn't make such a big difference. In Pnimius HaKeser, when you go to the Pnimius, to the higher level of the transcendent, no. But Evis Yaakov the detail makes a lot more difference. Right? So therefore, what's the word? Again, the same word. That when we talk about the Chetzeni is the external aspect, which is the idea of the limited aspect, so to speak, relative to the Pnimius. There is potential for a unique Chetzeni, for seepage to the Klippa. Whereas when we talk about the Pnimius, the internal aspect, it's not. But now the Rebbe sums it all up. The idea is this: even though in the realm of Atzilus of emanation, it's quoted from the pasuk of the Tehillim. The Rebbe mentioned it before. Lo yigur chara, evil does not dwell with you. In other words, so far as Atzilus is concerned, Klippa has no room. Shezehu gam b'sfiras hamalchus, which means that even in the lowest aspect of Atzilus, of the world of emanation, of the 10 divine attributes of Atzilus, also Klippa has no place. Bifrat bizo. Now he sums up all the levels, particularly when we talk about Zeirampin, the emotional attributes of Atzilus. Shu etzem Atzilus, which is the essence of Atzilus. Certainly there is no room for Ra, for Klippa. Bifrat b'sfiras habina, particularly when we talk about the divine attribute of Bina, understanding. B'sfiras hachma, when we talk about the divine attribute of Chachma, certainly no Klippa. Certainly when we talk about the transcendent divine energy, Keser, the crown, certainly there's no room for Klippa. So what's the point? Mikol Makim nonetheless. So he's talking now about Keser. If in Malchus Le'egur Chara, if in the lowest levels, there's no room for Klippa. So certainly when we come to Keser, to the transcendent divine energy, certainly there's no room for Klippa. So why is there a need over there for the limited and the unlimited? And the Rebbe goes even further. The Rebbe explains. Nevertheless, when we talk about Keser, the transcendent divine energy, the external aspect of the transcendent divine energy is already the dimension within Keser, within the crown, within the transcendent, that has some association to worlds, to the next level. This is a concept we spoke about and we learned about a number of times already. In every level, you have the pnimin, you have the chetzeni, you have the internal and the external. The internal aspect of that level is upward facing. The external aspect of that level is downward facing. Right? It's in each level and it's in different separate levels also. For example, as I mentioned before, Chochma and Bina. Chochma is bittul. Why? Because it's upward facing. It feels godliness. Bina is already the idea of downward looking. So over there it's already less bittul. That's why there's potential for unique of Klippa. So too in each dimension. What's Chetzenis HaKeser and Pnimis HaKeser? Chetzenis HaKeser is transcendent, but it's the transcendent as it's already associated with worlds. Pnimis HaKeser, the internal aspect of Keser, is upward facing. It's completely wrapped up in Gatlichkeit. There is no focus on the external. It's like when we say about Hashem's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, Hoya Hoyve V'yiyeh Ke'echad. Past, present, and future all wrapped up in one. What does that mean? It's beyond time. But the fact that you say that it's beyond time means that it has some connection to time already. Otherwise, if it's completely beyond time, as is Shem Havaya, which is Shem Ha'etzem, at a higher level of Shem Havaya, then time doesn't come into the discussion altogether, to the equation. So similarly, so he says like this, so even though we're talking about Keser, nevertheless we're talking about Chetzenis HaKeser. We're talking about a Makif, which has an association with worlds. In transcendent, there are levels. Take, for example, in Chassidus it talks about a makif hakorev and a makif harochik, a close makif and a distant makif. A makif, a transcendent that's close, and a transcendent level that's distant. Take, for example, clothing. Clothing surrounds the person, but it's makif hakorev. A house or a sukkah is makif harochik. It's also transcendent, also surrounds, but it surrounds it far more distantly, right? So this is the idea. So he says, "Some chetzenis hakeser." it's a makif, the external dimension of the transcendent divine energy. Keser is a transcendent level that has some connection to elements, to worlds. Ukmeikin l'mayla yeser. Now that it goes even higher. Keser is acharat tzimtzum. It's after the contraction. Says that even in the shalifnei tzimtzum in Hashem's divine energy before the first contraction, shal zeh omru concerning which we say, before the world was created, what existed? He and His name alone. Hashem and His name alone. What does it mean, Hashem and His name alone? It means sheyesh b'zeh beis madreges. There are two levels over here, right? So there was the Eibishter, there was Hashem, and Shmoy, His name. What's His name? His divine light, the Eir Insof. There was the Mo'er, the luminary, and then there was the Eir. As it says in Kabbalah, where was the tzimtzum? Where was the contraction? In Hashem's divine energy, Eir Insof, right? But in the Eir Insof, Shalifnei tzimtzum, even though we're talking before the contraction, so it's before Bria, before tzimtzum, before everything. Nevertheless, even in this Eir, even in this divine energy, there are two levels. His Pashtus Eir, the expansion of the light, and the divine light as it is included yet within the essence. It's like when we talk about the sun, the Alter Rebbe brings in.
How does that square with the idea of revelation and non-revelation? Because we learned this stuff beforehand. There was the pull down to reveal and not revealing. Those were the two levels. Is that,
You're going even higher. You're talking about Yechelis.
Yeah.
Yechelis Atzmos, potential for Eir.
Two strands.
yeah, but it's still within the framework of that.
You still have still that idea.
Inward looking and outward looking.
Yeah.
It's just the subtleties.
It's exactly.
Yeah.
In lower levels, it's already more fleshed out. But at every the Alter Rebbe explains that. I want to get back to the idea of Eir. He talks about the sun. He says we must say that the ray of the sun is included within the sun. Where does the ray of the sun start? It doesn't start outside the sun. It must start inside the sun, because if it's not inside the sun, how does it come to the outside? It's just that inside the sun, the sun is so overbearing that you can't discern the Eir. So he says like this. So in the divine energy before the tzimtzum, you have the expansion of the light. It means already the Eir, as it is an identifiable Eir energy. But then you have, as it is, still included within the essence. So the Eir, as is included within the essence, hardly knows that it's Eir. Hardly knows that it's not discernible. It's overwhelmed, and what's overbearing is the essence. So where is it focused? Upwards. Again, that's subtlety. The expansion of the light, it's already, this is an Eir, right? So that's already notionally outward focused, so to speak. Or to say it differently, the Rebbe says Oy, or for example, there's a divine energy that is connected to revelation, and there's a divine energy that's not connected to revelation. That's not connected to revelation, right? So the etzem ha'oir it's not about revelation. It exists, but it's merely existing because Hashem willed it into existence, that it should be oir. When we talk about the divine energy that's already focused downwards slightly, that's already in the context of what the Rebbe is explaining, is already the second aspect, which was downward facing. So what's the bottom line? It says the Rebbe, even though that in Malchus the Klippah has no connection and so on and so forth, certainly when you go all the way up to Keser, and even in the when you go up to Keser, nevertheless, the Rebbe is talking about an idea. The idea is that once you start focusing outward, there's already potential for problems at every level in its context. Being that the external
So why do you call it problems? It's creation.
That's it.
The creation, by definition, is separation.
Of course it's creation.
That's plan A. Okay.
An illness, God forbid, somebody that's ill, it's creation.
Yeah.
Is it a problem? It's a problem. Got to deal with it. It's Klippah. The Eibishter created Klippah, but for a purpose, not say, it's Klippah. So that's the point. What the Rebbe is trying to say, of course, it's creation. That's the process. The process is there should be choice, there should be challenge, there should be growth, right? So when I talk about problems, I mean to say there's already potential for something outside of Kedusha. The point that Rebbe is trying to make is that in order for our avodah to be appropriate, we cannot just focus on the chitzonis, on the external aspects. We cannot just focus on those aspects that are outward looking. We always need to retain, the Rebbe is going to explain it very beautifully in the next place. We always need to retain the knowledge, at least, the awareness that there's something which is beyond and something which is unlimited, even if we're not up to that level. So let's see how the Rebbe, let's finish the ice. Being that the external aspect of the crown, of the transcendent divine energy, is a transcendent aspect that is already associated to worlds, connected to the worlds. Therefore, already over there, even at that level, there is some shaykhs, some association with those that are outside of Kedusha, of holiness. Add to the extent, as mentioned before, at that level, the external aspect of the transcendent, the spider can grab hold, the spider being the metaphor for klippa, can grab hold and draw energy from there, and it doesn't matter to the king. The calls but this is all where in the external aspect of the transcendent. And to separate by 1,000 separations, unlimited separations. But Adam in man, in other words, the distance between man and kesed. So in man, in the external aspect of his desire, as mentioned before, in re'usa de liba, right? In the external aspect of re'usa de liba, in the external aspect of the desire of his soul, there's still a possibility for what? For yinike, for things to go into the wrong direction. When we talk about the internal aspect of the crown, of the transcendent divine energy, which is completely beyond worlds and realms, there is no hold for the exterior aspects to take hold over there. Being that it's completely beyond the limit of worlds. And therefore, it's always important to retain the connection to the unlimited dimension as well, as the Rebbe will explain beautifully in the next chapter. Mitzvah Shem tomorrow.
That's the bottom line.